Okay, it's 5:30. Good evening, everyone. We're going to start right on time. I'm Gina Picard, the new superintendent for the Charahoe Regional School District. So I just want to take this opportunity to say hello. I wish it was under better circumstances and we were meeting in person, face to face, but we are all learning how to do this work virtually. And as we all begin to rethink and redesign the way we think about learning, we will do the same as we get to interact with one another virtually. So I want you to know we all recognize that there is not an easy decision. You will continue to second guess every decision you make, probably. We're all going to do what's in the best interest, and we respect every choice every family is making, whether that be that you want full distance learning, that you want full in-person learning, that you're hoping that the governor and Dr. Alexander Scott are making the decisions based on strong science and metrics and will keep all of us safe, and that we will do the same as we think about our reentry into schools. But we recognize the stress and anxiety that everyone has, our staff, our families, our children, and that doesn't go unnoticed. So I want to just say, do not feel like you have to wait for any virtual forum to be able to get your questions answered. I'm available every day, either via phone call or an email. I continue to add to our FAQ as I get new questions that parents have. And I've asked our principals if they're getting questions to send them my way so I can update the FAQ for you. If you don't see your question there, email us. Please tell your friends. I just tweeted it out on Twitter. Anyone can come to any Zoom meeting, any virtual meeting. Sharon is helping co-host tonight's meeting, and at 7:30, Mr. McKenzie, Ms. Paz, and Mr. Auth will be helping me co-host that meeting. And while we put a school name on it, it was really more about me being new and having multiple opportunities to interact with our families, not because we wanted you to wait for a specific forum. So we hope that clarifies. But we will sort of highlight things at Richmond. We are recording. There was a glitch with our Charlestown virtual forum. I think I actually inadvertently hit pause instead of lowering somebody's hand and didn't recognize that little teeny tiny button on my top left go off. So I apologize that that's not posted. But there were very similar questions asked at the Ashaway Hope Valley one, and that is posted. And this one is recording. I'm checking on my top left and it's still taping, so we're good. With that being said, just a couple of logistics for tonight. If you want to ask a question after Sharon and Jane say hello and Sharon's going to give a sort of planning overview, at the bottom of your screen, you're going to see a little button that says participants. If you click on that button, that's going to give you the opportunity to raise your hand. So don't put your hand up in your screen, that we won't see. Don't click reactions. I think I actually took that one away. But if you want to ask a question, raise your hand, and I'm going to keep track and moderate sort of one at a time, and I'll call on you, and then you will unmute yourself. So if you're not speaking, we ask that you keep yourself muted. And when you do speak, we ask that you unmute. So Jane, are you on? Can't. Lots of people, so I'm looking to see if Jane Daly, let's see if I can search her name and see. She may have some technical glitches. People are still recovering from power outages. So Sharon, I'm going to kick it off to you.
Yes, so hello everyone. Oh my goodness, wish that we were all together to kick off this new school year, and I want to do a special big welcome to all of our incoming kindergarten parents. Usually by this time we would have met in March at registration and I would have had the opportunity to meet you and your child. So this is a really new experience for me, knowing that many of you are on this call and we've not had the opportunity to meet you. But I want to confirm what you've already heard, that you made the right choice, and Richmond School is a wonderful place for your child to begin kindergarten, and I look so forward to getting to know you and your family. We've been quite busy this summer getting our plans in place, and hopefully you've had the opportunity to look on our website, read our return to school plan. I've encouraged questions, and like Gina says, just fire away. They come and I answer them. At the very beginning, I created an FAQ as well, but I stopped doing that once the district did because I didn't want to duplicate efforts. So if any of you feel as if you have a question that has not been answered after the forum tonight, or maybe you feel more comfortable asking it in an email, you're certainly welcome to do that. And if it's a question I think applies to many families, I'll pass that along to the superintendent so that she can add it to the district FAQ. But I just want to assure you that we have really strong plans in place. We know how difficult it is. The superintendent, myself, the teachers, many of us are parents. And so these are conversations that we have in our own homes. But I am very confident that we will provide a high quality education to your child, whether you choose to send them to school or to do it from a distance. And I say that with the best confidence because I know that we've already done it before. We've learned a lot of lessons and we're going to do it even better. So what I'd like to tell you just briefly is that our plan moving forward for the start of in-person learning requires us to abide by many of the recommendations that have come from the Department of Health and from our commissioner. And our plan in Charahoe is very similar to the plans that most public schools have presented to the state. And I know that because, you know, my kids are in South Kingstown. So I read their plan and I looked at our plan, and it gave me peace of mind knowing that our plans are very similar, although we've done the work in isolation. So that goes to show that the public schools in Rhode Island are really using the science, the research, and the recommendations from the state in planning. So at Richmond School, what we've done is gone through every single classroom and separated the desks as best we could. The desks in every classroom are 6 feet apart with the exception of our third grade classrooms. One third grade classroom in particular, just based on the size of the room, we were able to get 4.5 feet between each desk. And the desks in the classrooms look a little bit like maybe when I was in school in the 70s because they're in rows and there's a teacher desk. But I have to say, there is so much incredible research out there this summer about creative ways of teaching a workshop model, doing center-based instruction, doing guided reading in a socially distanced classroom. So our teachers know how to be creative and have fun, and we are going to do that for your child in the classroom, despite some of the challenges to the physical appearance of the room. We have been in the process of identifying certain bathrooms that students will use and a cleaning schedule for which the bathrooms will be cleaned. We have hallways that are designated as one direction, and that will take a little getting used to, but again, that's something that we will do to ensure that the students are moving in one direction. We have a plan for staggered exit off the bus in the morning. We have a plan for staggered pickup in the afternoon with various locations where parents would pick up their child so that you wouldn't all be coming to the west entrance as you might normally do. We have a plan where lunches will be in the classroom. We have a plan where recesses will be separated by classroom pod. So that means that the students will be going to recess, but they'll be going to recess with just their class and assigned location. So luckily for us at Richmond, as you know, we have a lot of nice outdoor spaces. So we will be able to send 3 classes to recess at a time, assigning 1 class to the equipment, 1 class to the fields, and 1 class to the hardtop. I've already talked to the PTO. If you don't know our PTO, it's probably because you're a kindergarten parent, but I can tell you they are unbelievable, and they've reached out to me a number of times. They're waving. They've reached out to me a number of times to ask, how can we help? How can we provide more recess equipment so that you can clean one set while the other set is available for play? They're in the process of looking into some tents so that we can have some additional outdoor classroom space. And they are working with our local Boy Scout troop to renovate our courtyard space so that that's another exterior learning space for the purpose of outdoor instruction. So in terms of the physical building, it's been painted. So bye-bye Charahoe Green, hello Richmond Blue. Custodians have cleaned every single classroom and they are almost finished painting the hallways. And we're ready. We're ready. At this point, I know many of the other forums have talked about the virtual option and how that will impact class placement. So our class placement is done for now, and our plan is to wait until tomorrow to have a better sense of how many families will choose that virtual option and whether or not that will impact our classroom placement. many of the other forums have had similar questions in that if my child is learning from a distance, will my child have a Charahoe teacher? And I can assure you that your child will have access to a Charahoe teacher. Right now, the plan is that every teacher will be responsible for teaching the children in their classroom, whether those children are virtual or in person. And because we are a very well-established workshop model school, that means that our teachers are very comfortable doing small group instruction. So if you can imagine 3 rotations of small groups, one of those rotations might be a virtual rotation where the teacher is seeing a small group of students who are learning from home. And then the remaining 2 groups that she or he sees would be students in person. We are going to be using Google Classroom in all of our grades, K through 4, and that was really based on feedback from parents. We had a lot of positive feedback from parents of students in 2nd, 3rd, and 4th grade. They felt very comfortable with Google Classroom. They felt they were able to access the assignments easily. Children were more comfortable using it. In kindergarten and 1st grade, we use Class Dojo, and it has so many fabulous strengths, but some families felt like it was a little hard to navigate. So we took that feedback and thought it really would be best that we provide the technology platform that would be the same for all students K through 4. We will provide every student with a device, whether they are learning in the classroom or they're learning from home. That device will be a Chromebook in grades 1 through 4, and in kindergarten it will be an iPad. And I cannot thank the Charahoe community or technology department. That was a huge lift because I know for a long, long time, being a 2-to-1 district, financially that was what we could support. And very quickly we needed to figure out a way to provide a device to every child. And so I'm just so grateful because now that we have that gives our students, whether they're learning in person or at home, the ability to use that device. And should we need to change the setting based on the governor's recommendation and go to full distance learning, we'll be ready in a moment's notice because those devices will go back and forth with children every day. So I've given you lots of information, probably, hopefully none of it's new because it, like I said, was in our return to school plan, but I'm going to give this opportunity for you to ask questions of me and of the superintendent. And I think Gina has a system of which I do not know how it works. So
That's
I will
okay.
hand over the reins to you.
No worries. I know Jane Daly is on, our assistant superintendent. So I'm gonna let Jane say hello.
Hi, everybody. Sorry.
Oh, you're muted, Jane.
Oh,
there you go.
okay. Hello. Hi, everyone. Sorry, I was a few minutes behind. I just want to thank you all for joining this night, and also just thank you for all you did last spring. I think the whole, it was just amazing to me how the whole Charahoe community came together, really to deliver great learning for our students. And I know we'll be able to do that this fall, no matter what phase we're in. So thank you very much for your continued support. And I'm sure I want to give you time to ask questions. So.
And as you know, Jane led the district in the spring during this really difficult time. And I think her and the district did a really great job in navigating that. And as much as it's new and we want to tell you that things won't be as bumpy, I just want to recognize that our teachers are now going to be asked to do something different. They're going to be asked to do in-person and distance learning at the exact same time. And while I think educators who are awesome always figure it out, I just want you to know, we often tell our children, making mistakes is how you learn. So we're actually doing this action research along with them, and they're seeing firsthand how adults navigate, make mistakes, and get better. So we know that you will join us with that, give us your feedback, things that are going well, let us know. Things that you don't really like or have challenges with, let us know as well. I just want to clarify one thing. There seems to be some confusion about the August 17th. And we do meet now with the governor every week and the commissioner. So the governor's plan is a full reopen as of now, based on metrics. And what she said is she's going to update us again August 17th. If you listened in at her press conference yesterday, she reiterated that there would only be 3 districts if she opened yesterday that would not be full return. And that was Central Falls, Providence, and Pawtucket. So based on that, we're still planning for a full reopening. She's not changing her mind. August 17th is about where at that point are the metrics, and if it's changing based on those metrics. We could change metrics October 1st, August 27th, November 3rd. It could change. And what we're saying is, if you register for the distance learning, that's tomorrow. Anyone who doesn't is planning to do whatever the governor implements based on the metrics that are designed. So I just want to make sure that that's clear. I think there was a confusion, and we had brought that up to the governor and the commissioner, that parents are thinking, oh, you're doing something different. Well, I think what she tried to clarify yesterday was that right now she's ready to reopen just about every district except for 3. So just to clarify, but she's not going to do anything unless the metrics provided to the state are in line with all that work. So just to clarify that. And now at the bottom, if you have a question, just raise your hand and go click on participants. And right next to your name, you'll see like a little up, and I see 2 hands are raised. You'll see raise your hand, and then I'll start there. So Sherry McHugh, if you could unmute yourself.
Hi. So it's nice to meet you. I know that I'm like an email person, and I have to apologize for my 10-page email. It just went on and on, but so anyway, I wanted to get that out of the way. So as many of you know, I know Sharon knows, and I'm the severe disabilities teacher at Richmond, and I have kids with significant needs that so we require some accommodations to this. But so today I just wanted to ask, I have a mask question and the platform question. So today I teach ESY. We did a practice on Zoom because I use Zoom still, and we practiced with masks. I have been telling them, the families and the kids, that we are going to practice using our masks, because right now the guidelines say that the kids will, unless they have a medical exemption, they will be required to wear the masks. So we did a mask practice. So I have, of my 10 kids, there was, I think, 7 in attendance, and I did give them breaks. I had 3 that would not even keep them on at all. And then I had some that they did keep them on. But I guess my question is, so we are allowed breaks. How long are there any guidelines around how long they are going to be required to wear them before they have breaks? Because it did not go over very good. 20 minutes was the tops. And then I had my timer set, and then we would have 8 minutes off. And I do want to know that if this does, if the parents do not get a medical exemption and the student won't keep it on, how are we handling this? And I guess the platform question is, I use Classroom Dojo, and my families are all, they understand Zoom, and you like to see all my students. And one of the things that Google me, and I've talked to Sean about this, is that you cannot see all my students. I have kids that are nonverbal. I have kids that are, that need assistance. And if with the extension, if you can see them, you see this much tiny, tiny, tiny little presentation. And for kids that have low attention, that's not going to cut it on an 11-inch screen. That was my other, if there's exceptions. I wanted to know if there's exceptions to the platform. And my parents are all very, very used to Classroom Dojo. So I guess there's 3 there.
Okay, so for the mask wearing, it is new. We don't expect everyone to be perfect at that. What we were asking, and we continue to ask, is everyone, I have a 10-year-old, and she has a hard time as well. So it's building up the stamina. And you said you just started today. That's an impossible request from our young learners and even our high school students. It has to be building stamina. We're doing the best that we can. So asking our families to we have some videos in our FAQ, but thinking about building up that time. Mask for 20 minutes, mask for 30 minutes, mask for an hour while they're getting ready to get back to school. Working with families. This is a partnership. We're building global citizens. That's part of the vision of Charahoe. And in order to do that, as a community, this is a public health crisis. This is not, nobody asked for COVID. Nobody here wants to wear masks every single day and be limited to 15 people gatherings. So we're dealing with a lot, and we have to recognize that our children are dealing with that as well. And they're going to try their best, and we have to be mindful of the fact that this is new. So no different than you would do with anything else. You would communicate with the family, work with the family, create a plan. Think about, some kids can go longer than others. That's going to be the reality. And so thinking about those opportunities, I know our principals are building in lots of outside time. Sharon mentioned outside classrooms, movement breaks, making sure you're 6 feet apart. But there's not like, oh, every 10 minutes they have to have a mask break, or every once an hour. That doesn't exist. It really is going to be a lot of us troubleshooting and really thinking about how we customize every child's need, because some children are going to do better than others because they've been asked to. I have families who've reached out, their mom and dads are nurses, police officers. They've been wearing masks in the house every single day. So they're going to have a better stamina than those who don't. So this is going to be something that we have to work with our families and really understand. Now, an out-and-out refusal is not something that we can allow, because it puts everybody at risk. But again, I would ask that we work with our families, communicate, no different than we would with any other policy that's implemented. And this is not a Charahoe policy. This is a statewide directive that we're all following and working hard with each other to do that as a global community. With
I have some kids that have a cognitive level of 18 months old.
Right.
And to tell them that I mean, if forcing them to keep a mask on is going to get in the way of education.
Right, I'm going to just finish I'm going to finish answering, and if you want, we can always have an offline conversation with our teachers and staff, because I really want to make sure our families have the opportunity too, but I'm happy to do that. So the other question you had was about, we are consistently going to be using Google Classroom for K-8. A lot of the feedback we received from all our families was the consistency was going to be important. Classroom Dojo was not something that parents found user-friendly, as Sharon said, and that we all have to make decisions, and we all have to rethink how we're doing things. And while certain platforms, people like them, it's definitely going to be something everyone's getting used to. So we are moving to the Google Meets K-8 on Canvas 9 through 12, but I'm happy to talk with school level teams around sort of district level decisions for teachers to be able to support that as we move forward, because next week the principals will be working with school improvement teams to really get very specific around this kind of work. So I have Kayla.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, thank you. So I just wanted to start by saying thank you for offering these forums and all the transparency and opportunities we have to ask questions. I don't envy any of you and all the work you're having to do this summer. My question is specific to kindergartners. I'm a mom of a first-time incoming kindergartner, and I just wanted to know what I should expect from distance learning, whether we commit to that tomorrow, or it's something we switch to out of nowhere, you know, or based on metrics, obviously. Is it something I should be planning to like train him to do all day? Is it discordant where I could work during the day and help him with his work at night? Or what should I expect from that? And is there anything I can do to help prepare him with the rest of the summer to go?
So you want me to answer that?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely. Go ahead.
So our kindergarten teachers did an unbelievable job teaching kindergarten from a distance last year. And much of the way they did it last year would be what we would replicate this year, with the exception that when everyone is home, it's a little different than when some students are home and some students are in the classroom. If you choose to learn from a distance, your child would be required to attend Google Meets, which is just like Zoom, but in a platform like this, Google Meets, where they would have the opportunity to either have some small group or one-on-one time with a teacher or a TA, or to view a lesson that the teacher or the TA might be doing. And they would be scheduled so that you may you'll get that schedule from the teacher in advance, where you know that your child's required to be at the morning meeting at 9:15. Then your child needs to come back for a reading lesson at 10:15. Then maybe your child's required to be back for math at 1, and that there will be assignments that the child will need to do with your support from home. Some of those assignments may be on paper or that you print them out. Some of those assignments might be assignments that they do on the iPad. And what we need to really explore is to make sure that we find that healthy balance for kindergarten and first grade students. When we were learning from a distance in the spring, they did everything on paper or a paper packet. And that had some really nice strengths in terms of giving kids that fine motor experience. But we know that we're also going to be relying on some of our technology platforms to give students some practice online, and also give our teachers some data in terms of what they are able to do. Jane, I don't know if there's anything else that I didn't say that you'd want to share from the teaching and learning team work.
Yeah, I think, Sharon, you hit the nail on the head when you talked about that. Everyone would be required to join at least in the morning for a morning meeting, and that's how attendance would be taken. And it will be like synchronous and asynchronous. So there'll be some learning where it's live with the teacher, and then there will be times where the students will be practicing what they've learned on their own. We do have math workbooks for students, math books, and also handwriting books. So those would be things that could be sent home. But one thing that we did as a teaching and learning group talk about is for especially K and 1, parents wanted to be able to get that feedback quicker from the teachers on how the students were doing. And if it took a week for all the work to then get turned into the school and then get to the teacher, it wasn't happening fast enough. So what we've kind of are working on is a training for parents on how they can electronically upload the work so that teachers will be able to get it much faster and then give the feedback a lot quicker. So that's one of the things that we learned from the spring that we'll try to improve on.
Thank you. Lindsay Longville.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Can you hear me? I think
Yes.
so. All right, because I'm in the car. Hi, Sharon. So I have 2 questions, and they're very different from each other. But the first, and just for background, I have a soon-to-be 3rd grader and also an incoming kindergarten student who was really excited to go to kindergarten, and this has been a bit of a bump in her road. But anyway, so the first question is about airflow, ventilation, air conditioning, because I know that's been an issue at Richmond, like coming forward, and they got air conditioning, but maybe not all the classrooms, but maybe they have them now, or can they use that? Because obviously the kids are sitting at their desk wearing their mask all day. So, and also like if there's any kind of filtration system that goes through the air, how that circulates throughout the building, which you may or may not know. But
Well, actually, we do know because we've gotten that question and we added that to our FAQ. Yes, ACs are allowed. They will be cleaned the filters will be cleaned every night. Our Director of Facilities, Jason Sullivan, is working with the custodians. They continue to receive additional training around COVID practices and what and how they should be cleaning. So what we also can have fans. We just can't blow fans directly on students. So that so they gave us guidance on that. But right now, our schools, our HVAC systems, our filters all meet all the requirements based on our COVID recommendations from the CDC. So that's a very good question, and we made sure we found that out.
okay.
And I can just add to that, just to let you know that the air conditioning units were actually installed. They had planned to be installed last year in the fall, but the district ran out of time before winter by the time they did some of the other schools. So then we thought we'd have them installed in the spring, and then COVID hit. So when I was there yesterday, there are new units in every classroom, and we have been given permission by the fire department to leave the doors open as long as staff are trained to know that in the event of a fire, the door should be locked and quickly shut.
And they would have to be, the doors can be open but locked. So in the case of a lockdown, they could shut that quickly.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then my second question is just around kind of what the in-person learning will look like, if it will be, you know, they're used to sitting at groups of 4. They're used to collaborating. In kindergarten, sharing is like a big thing. And obviously I would imagine that's no longer. So what will that kind of day look like? Are they going to be doing a lot of things on the Chromebook similar to the distance learning, but like in person, I guess? And then back to kindergarten, you know, that's a hard transition. And the teacher, I mean, my older daughter has had fabulous teachers. We love Richmond Elementary. I dropped her off like screaming, and she, you know, like the staff like peeled her off of me, and I didn't even know who they were, but I trusted them, and she's done great. But now with my other, and given COVID, how is that being handled? Because that kindergarten transition is really hard, and then physical contact being not advised.
Go ahead, Sharon.
So that's a great question too. And for those of you that know me, I love hugging your children. So that's going to be really hard for me not to do those hugs. But if someone is crying and I'm wearing a mask and that child's wearing a mask, and I'm going to help peel that baby off that mama and assure that mom that that child's going to be fine. But we will have to be careful about keeping our distance. But in terms of your question around instruction, again, the kindergarten teachers have been shooting me little emails and pictures of some creative ways of continuing to do centers. So for example, in the afternoon, we like them to have some unstructured playtime. And typically in a kindergarten classroom, they might go to the block center or the sand table or to an exploratory center. And so one of the suggestions that kindergarten teachers came up with was to continue to have those same centers, but that the kids would take the centers to their desk. So 4 students, for example, might be working with the pattern blocks, and they'd each get a bin of pattern blocks. 4 students in another center might be at the art center, so they would get a bin labeled art center, and that goes to their desk. So rather than physically moving to an identified location in the classroom to go to a center, they're still at that center. They still have that unstructured free time, but it's at their seat. And then those materials would be cleaned before they were used again. So just a little example. In terms of a kindergarten classroom, we do a lot with numeral recognition and letter recognition and reading readiness. So all of that instruction will continue. It just will continue from a distance. And so that really is going to be our challenge, because we have moved away, as I said earlier, from teaching students in rows. And so that's going to be different. It's really, I have to be honest, that's going to be different. But I know that our teachers are creative, and they will find ways of making those connections, that proximity to students that we know is so important in teaching them using our curriculum. So that will continue. It's just going to require us to maintain that distance, that safety, and also think outside the box in terms of what are the ways that we're going to provide that intensive instruction in reading and writing and math. How are we going to continue to develop that sense of community and the social emotional skills? And we did it back in the day in desks, and we know a heck of a lot more about what's appropriate and best practice for kids. So we can do it again. And in our kindergarten classrooms right now, our kindergarten classes are small. They're small. I think we have around 16, 17 students in a classroom. So when you walk into those kindergarten classrooms, although there are desks, one classroom has tables, the others have desks. They feel spacious, they feel open, and the teachers have been able to use the perimeter of the room where they can do their lending libraries and their centers. So we will make it work, but it will be different.
Thank you, Sharon. Louise Dinsmore. Louise? Oh, but you're unmuted. Hold on.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
That I was getting my son ready for karate tonight. So first, thank you so much for everything that the whole Charahoe community did to rally in the spring. You amazed me, and we appreciate it, our family, everything that you did, the teachers, the administrators. Thank you so much. And I know that you've been working really hard this summer, and we appreciate your efforts to have the kids come back, you know, God willing. So my question is, and I've read most of the stuff online, but you know, what is the plan if, God forbid, a teacher tests positive? And then what if a child in the classroom tests positive? So those are my first two questions. And then I have a question about the bus.
Absolutely. So the Department of Health put out a child care playbook. They're working on the school reopening playbook, which we don't have yet. But what they told us was, and I linked it to our FAQ, is that we should look at the child care playbook as basically the launching pad of how they're designing the school playbook. And that they're going to use that because right now I believe there's 10,000 students in childcare across the state, and they've only had one issue with case. So they do feel they have sort of these metrics figured out. But what it says currently is, one, we will never determine what happens next on our own, that the Department of Health is going to have a liaison work directly with us should we have a positive case for a staff and or student. And then what they do is they actually have metrics, algorithms to determine who and how many. The question is, do you shut down a whole classroom? They have basically things that they have said, and again, it could change based on any lessons learned from childcare. But were they in contact longer than 15 minutes? Did they all have masks on? When did they take masks off? How many were 6 feet if you do like a circle perimeter? So they have all that knowledge, which is why they told us we wouldn't do that alone, that they would assign someone to us and that they would walk us through step by step that process, whether it's staff or student. Now, with HIPAA, we would never be able to say, Gina has COVID, we want to let you know. We would say there is a case or there's a potential, and then they do the notifications and they rely on us for sort of that contact tracing. And we're going to be monitoring pods via our student information system in PowerSchool.
Okay, thank you so much. Giovanni's been in summer camp this summer and it's gone very smoothly. He's only been in a group with 10 kids, but it's gone very, very well. So my other question is the question about the bus. So there was a thingy that went out whether or not your child's going to need busing. So, I mean, we live 5 minutes from school. So I said that to help other parents who might not have that luxury of being able to drive and pick up their kids, that we would not use the bus. However, if things improve in January and we want to put Giovanni on the bus, is that an option? Or should I have not filled out that thing saying
that's
no
an
busing?
option. So
Okay.
I know that there's this practice of I'm going to do it just in case, but I've talked with Lillian from the bus yard. I've talked with Sean, Jane, a lot of conversations around busing. We're actually in a pretty good place with our elementary schools. We do, even with the 1 per seat, which is what it currently is, we do believe anyone that's asked for transportation, we would be able to accommodate. Now, like you said, if things get tight, we haven't sort of met that metric yet with middle school and high school. We're waiting on the registrations to see what that does for our population size. We get a little bit of flexibility from the state with middle school and high school. There's no flexibility with elementary. The governor was very clear that the plan for partial and full in-person must include every single student pre-K through 5. So we prioritize that. So that means we basically moved late buses that would have typically gone for high school after school to the elementary school level to ensure we could accommodate our elementary school students, because that was required by the state in our plan. With that being said, the superintendents, the governor, the commissioner have met regarding the question around why can't we have siblings? So now they've said, yes, you can have people from the same household sit in the same seat. So I could put 2 on a seat if it's the same household. Then some of the teachers said, well, if they're in the same household and they're all coming to the grade 2 classroom and they're in the same pod and they're wearing masks, why can't they sit in a seat together? Great question. We asked that. And the governor said the Department of Health is not in the business of putting our children on buses, right? They don't usually do stuff like that. They deal with public transportation. So when they gave us guidance, they were really thinking about public. So what they've said was, listen, this is new to us too. You all tell us how this usually works. If you're telling us you're assigning seats and you can make sure by pod, then let's talk it through. So I believe this week and next week, the Department of Health, the commissioner, the governor's office, the National Guard, RIPTA are all meeting with superintendents from the executive board to discuss how this looks, so they're clear about what public looks like versus school buses. Because like I said, if the kids are going to the same classroom and they're in the same pod, we may be able to put more on a seat. But typically you wouldn't see more than 2 on a seat unless they were family. Like if we could do 3, if they had 3 little ones, you know, K1 and 2, and they're on the same family, you could. They have no problem with the same household. The 2 to a seat, they're thinking it should be okay if it's pods, but they're going to review it and let us know. They also suggested that if we want to get those proposals accepted, and it's not Charahoe's proposal, it's the whole state, we put it together as one plan. We just added it to our plan. It was also that we would be thinking about monitors for our middle school and high school buses, which is not what we typically had, but it was more for safety and to ensure they were wearing the masks because the driver's driving.
Okay, so just so I understand, even though I filled out that form that Giovanni would not need the bus right now, if things improve in January and I decide, all right, he can go on the bus, there would be a spot for him on the bus.
Yes, there should be, yes.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so we have, let's see. That was Louise. So we next is Katie Cahoon. Katie?
Hello, can you hear me all right?
Yes.
Hi, so I had 2 questions, and the first one was about specials teachers and the pods.
Okay.
So obviously I understand the pods are meant so that way, you know, kids are, you know, exposed to less people. I'm wondering what specials teachers are going to look like. Are kids going to go to all their specials? Are the teachers going to come to them? And I'm just thinking about if all these specials teachers are going to all these different classrooms, does that negate this great pod structure?
I'm going to let Sharon talk to you about what it looks like, but before she goes, I'm just going to let everyone know that the adults coming in, before and after they leave every classroom, it's hand washing required, always mask wearing, so to ensure that extra precaution. And then I'll let Sharon discuss how she sort of scheduled the specials.
So at Richmond Elementary School, our special schedule looks the same next year as it has in years past, meaning that students will have every special they would have normally had on a rotating schedule. So that means if your child is going into kindergarten, they'll have library twice a week, they'll have PE twice a week, they'll have art, music, and world language. In the other grades, 1 through 4, they'll have PE twice a week, library once a week, health once a week, art once a week, music once a week, and world language once a week. So what the superintendent said is accurate, that we will have those teachers going into each of those classrooms, washing their hands before they go in, washing their hands when they leave, and those teachers will be included in the pod count. So right now, the pod count cannot exceed 30. That means including students and teachers and TAs. So I hear your point about, you know, having extra people coming and going. And we really weighed that. We talked about what would it look like if we had our specials taught virtually. And we can do a virtual art class, we can do a virtual PE class, but in our heart of hearts, we wanted to provide students with the expertise of the teachers in that classroom space. And so we will include them in the count. We'll practice safe entrance and exiting procedures. Already, one of the art teachers reached out to me today about her idea, again, giving each student rather, their own art kit. That would be their art kit that they use with the materials they need. And should a child be learning from home, parents would be asked to come and pick up those art supplies in advance so the child could participate in the same art activity from home. So that's my best answer for you. I don't know if it's the answer that you're looking for, but that's our plan moving forward.
Okay, thank you. And my other question was around transparency. So if, say, a child in a classroom gets sick or a teacher, obviously we're not going to name names because of HIPAA, but would only that class parents find out, or would the whole school be notified if there's a case? You know, what is the transparency going to look like?
Actually, that's something that we've asked the Department of Health to make sure we're following all protocols, similar to how you get your notices now if there was, God forbid, whooping cough or things like that. There's criteria that they'll provide us that lets us know, and they're letting us know that because it's COVID's a new thing, that they'll provide that in the playbook.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Faith.
Hi, we are new to the district. I have a first grader coming into Richmond Elementary, and I just wanted to clarify, you did say, that the distance learning would have, scheduled lessons and that sort of thing. I didn't know if we pick distance learning right off the bat. I just wanted to clarify, does that mean you're trying to do synchronous teaching all along, or are you saying that the scheduled lessons, it would be scheduled through? Can you explain a little bit how that day would look a little bit more with the distance learning, I guess? Because I know once distance learning happens, if we have to go back into quarantine, you described how it would look, but if you choose distance learning only through the whole year, would that be synchronous with the pods in the classroom, or would it be the scheduled lessons like you talked about?
So I can answer that.
Okay.
We're waiting to see how many families choose a distance learning option. Because if we, for example, have 20 students that choose a distance learning option in second grade, then I could potentially move those 20 students to one second grade classroom, and they could be assigned a teacher who would be responsible to provide distance learning to those 20 students. And they would be a classroom for the duration of time learning from a distance. However, that's probably an ideal situation, and I'm not sure that's going to work out that way because based on the information that I have right now, there are some classrooms that may have 2 or 3 students that are learning from home, and some classrooms that have none. So more than likely, the classroom teacher, like I said earlier, will be responsible for providing that instruction. So a typical first grade student would come in the morning. We start our day with a responsive classroom morning meeting. Your child would be a part of that. If your child chooses to learn from home, your child would be a part of that morning meeting, and children would do a greeting. And then your child may have some work that he or she is doing independently until the next time your child's due to report to a Google Meet. And that Google Meet may be the teacher doing a lesson for the whole class. More than likely, it will be the teacher doing some direct instruction with your child and or your child and other children who are learning from home. And that will happen a few times throughout the day in the areas of math and reading. There may be other content area times when that child is participating in a live active lesson, or that child may be viewing something. We have a lot of great technology with our science program where the students might be viewing an interactive lesson from our science kit. They may be viewing a video connected to a reading assignment. So it will depend certainly on the content, but yes, your child will be learning the same material that the children are learning in the classroom based on our curriculum and based on our district pacing guide. And some of that learning will be happening at the same time, and some of that learning will be happening on their own.
And then will they be wearing masks at recess?
So correct me if I'm wrong, Mrs. Picard, but my understanding is that they do not need to wear masks at recess because they are going to be practicing social distancing and they're going to be active. So that means they're going to be running, they're going to be playing games. We're a Recess Rocks school, and Recess Rocks is an organization through Blue Cross and Playworks. And that means that our staff has been trained to do Recess Rocks games and to have a very active recess. But they have been wonderful this summer about sharing socially distanced games and activities that we can do at recess. So we want our kids to be healthy, active, and moving. And based on the Department of Health, as long as they're running and moving around, they don't need to wear their mask.
And like Sharon said, that's just, and it's teaching them about how to keep that social distance. So you're not going to play tag where you touch someone, but we had one parent suggest using pool noodles or shadow tag. So we're going to be rethinking and how we do recess, but we understand movement is important. We've been working on Mike Shields, our athletic director in the high school, has been doing a wonderful job with all our coaches, really, and putting in practice the athletics piece. So we've been doing that since the mid-July, actually late June, and it's going very, very well. The kids have been great. They've been following the rules, practicing the protocols. So we're very pleased with that. And again, we're going to be sort of rethinking what recess looks like, because you can't get really, really close, but you can play. So they will be able to take their masks off, and then we'll, like, you know, sort of teach them about the perimeter that they have to be mindful of. B. Bishop.
Yep. Hi, my name is Brooke Bishop. I have a daughter in a special ed classroom at Richmond Elementary, and she's going into first grade. So I have 4 questions. The first is about inclusion opportunities, knowing that we're using a pod structure. Will children in special ed still have the opportunity for inclusion opportunities to stay within the guidelines?
That's an easy one. That's a yes.
Okay.
Is that what you were looking for? That, I was like, that's too easy.
Yeah. I just didn't see that in either of the plans I reviewed, so I wanted to
Actually, I met
confirm.
with Jen Durkin, our director of special ed. She's thinking through some of the questions as well, so we'll make sure that it's clear.
Okay, excellent. And then I joined a little late, so I'm not sure if this was already asked, but in regards to outdoor classrooms, like, what's the opportunity for students there? How frequently will they potentially be used? And, like, as parents, is the school counting on us to put sunscreen on our kids before the day starts? Should we send extra? Things like that.
That's a great question. We're actually creating a district sort of school by school checklist of things we want you to take with you. It's not finalized. Those are like the logistics we would send home with you when we give you your, you know, what classroom you're in. But we're thinking, like, bring a beach towel so you can sit on it. You know, the sunscreen, I'm double checking with our nurses and Dr. Manlove to make sure we are clear about, you know, who puts on the sunscreen, can they have it? So we're just gonna make sure we follow all those protocols. But yes, we're gonna be using outside areas as much as possible. I know every principal is really being very mindful about all those opportunities.
Okay, and then I know another mom asked a question about specials. And that answer was clear, Mrs. Martin, but I guess I'm just curious for those that are differently abled, where they're not able to do it themselves and maybe they need hand over hand assistance or support. Like, are the teachers who are teaching the specials going to be able to support them, or are we counting on the therapists to push in during those special times so that they still get to enjoy and participate in those experiences?
So our special teachers have always been working hand over hand and supporting our students to actively engage in specials, and that will continue for sure. And certainly in many settings, including our self-contained settings, some of our other students who are behaviorally challenged, there's going to need to be contact. And we're very well aware of that. The district has purchased PPE for those particular staff members that may need to have close contact with students. So they will be equipped for their own safety and for the safety of students, but that contact, when it's necessary to either redirect a student or to help a student engage in a music activity or an art activity, is something that we are encouraging, and teachers will continue to do that practice that they've done all along.
Okay. And then my last question is just around masks in general. I know, like, if there's a medical reason, you can seek an exception from your doctor, but let's say that, you know, someone starts the year and we think it's okay that they wear a mask as long as they need to, or maybe they struggle being differently abled. With that, like, if that needs to change and an exception needs to be granted, is that allowed? Is that okay?
That is, with a medical exemption, the CDC and the Department of Health have provided guidance about how we would just keep extra distance and some of the protocols we'd put in place to ensure safety.
But what if that student really can't afford the extra distance?
I would then you know, I can double check with them. I know, but that's some of the guidance they've given us about the amount of space, just to be thoughtful.
Yeah,
measured.
and that makes sense under normal circumstances. It's just with a nonverbal child who needs, full support. It's just not the same. So,
Are you talking about with the adults or the other children?
with the adults,
No, the adults will have the extra PPE, so that's not going to be an issue. It will be there'll be further space from the other students.
okay. And even with the other students, right? Like, I think just perception wise, one of the things that I think is amazing about our school district is how embracing everyone is of different abilities, and like having that continue.
Yeah. And I think what you would think about is, so let's say we needed to provide maybe 10, like Sharon said, based on the number of students getting distance learning. If we know the class size is smaller, then we can spread them out, all the desks out even further. And that child you wouldn't even know which child needed the extra distance necessarily.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome. Robin Woodmansey.
Hello. Thank you for everything you guys are doing. We truly appreciate it. I have two questions. One, Mrs. Martin, could you talk to us? Sorry, we have multiple kids. We're at karate. So we have kids coming and going from karate classes. So sorry if you hear them. Sharon, could you talk a little bit about the hand washing and sanitizing and how that's going to be a little different than last year? And then my second question is going to be, how is it going to work for parents who choose the virtual option now, but next quarter want to choose to go in person? Can you just talk a little bit about that, like, and vice versa, if you choose
Sure.
one and want to go?
So we have always had very sound hand washing practices in classrooms, especially in our allergy aware classrooms. So those practices will now continue for our entire building, so that students will wash their hands when they enter, they'll wash their hands before they go to recess, they'll wash their hands after recess, they'll wash their hands before they eat lunch, they'll wash their hands anytime. I'm laughing at the quiet message. They will wash their hands anytime they leave that classroom space. So for example, if your child receives reading services from a reading specialist, your child will wash their hands prior to entering that space, and your child will wash their hands prior to exiting that space. Likewise, the staff person will, in the example of the reading specialist who has students coming to her space, those children will be coming to her from the same pod, so they'll come from the same classroom, or they'll come alone. That space will be cleaned prior to the child entering, and then after the child leaves, hands will be washed prior to entering and exiting, both the adult and the child. In terms of access, right now, the only classrooms that have sinks in them are Mrs. McHugh's classroom and Mrs. Morris's classroom. The rest of the classrooms do not, so that means that students will need to wash their hands in the restrooms that have been assigned to them, and or use the hand sanitizer that will be provided to them. The district learned last year that the hand sanitizer needs to have, I believe, 60% alcohol, and all the hand sanitizer that we have in every classroom and in hallway spaces is compliant with that need. I know that this morning, I believe, when I was in a meeting with the superintendent and some of our town administrators and police and fire, just at our weekly meetings, we talked about looking into the possibility of transforming some of our water filling stations into hand washing stations.
Not the water filling stations, the old bubblers.
Oh, the old bubblers.
Making them dual operating systems for either filtration or hand washing. So they would be.
At Richmond, there's only one old-fashioned water fillings, or what do you call it? Rhode Island people call them bubblers.
Bubbler.
Jersey people call them water fountains, but whatever. There's only one of those right now because our PTO has been so gracious to transform the other 5 into water filling stations. But that is something that we're looking into. Brings me back to memories of when we couldn't use our water and we had water in the hallways. If any teachers on the call, they know how much fun that was when we had water filling stations in the hallways. But we're looking into that option. But at any rate, to answer your question, yes, we will do hand washing on a very, very regular basis, more frequently than we even did in years past. Robin, your second question escaped me. Oh, I remember it now. So your second question is, if you choose to do distance learning for the first trimester, Will there be an option for your child to re-engage in in-person learning for the second trimester? And the answer is yes. We will be flexible with parents' requests, and we'll take them on a person-by-person basis. But we truly need to know what your choice is so that we can plan for you and your child. And so if you choose for your child to learn from a distance for the first trimester and wish for them to return for the second, no problem. We are ready for that to happen. Likewise, I had some parents reach out to me and say, well, what happens if I enroll my child for the first 2 weeks of school and then I change my mind? We don't really want to encourage that because it could impact our class placement, but we're flexible. These are unprecedented times. We don't want to be black and white. We will work with you, but we're really hoping that you can tell us now so that we can plan the very best ways to set up our classes for September.
Thank you. Thank you. Dana Palmagiano.
Hi, everyone. Sharon, I think you may have just answered my question, or at least answered it as best as possible. My question was just regarding distance learning and opting into distance learning. Our family is, as I'm sure many families are, struggling with this decision and kind of how to best handle it for our family. So if we choose not to opt in to distance learning because we then have to commit for a specific time period, is our only option at that point if things are changing so quickly? So I know that you're saying it's looking like a full return, but that the numbers today are high again, and so things are changing quickly. So if we do not opt for distance learning, but then after the governor makes her final decision, is our only option. I know final decision is never final, but is our only option at that point a homeschool option, or would we be able to consider something else? And Sharon, I think you just answered that when you talked about flexibility, and I guess we're just not knowing kind of how to respond to this tomorrow.
So basically, there's several parents that know, and we get it. Even the parents that think they know, they emailed and say, well, what if, like you said, it's not easy. But like Sharon said, it makes planning really, really hard if we have no idea, because people want classroom rosters, schedules, all those things come with needing to know information. Teachers planning how many in-person, virtual, what does that look like? But with that being said, we recognize this is not something that's typical. So while we ask that you determine your distance learning option by tomorrow, and then our plan is that anyone who doesn't is moving forward based on the governor's decision. So whatever phase she's going to implement at whatever time, based on those metrics, that the families are doing what the governor has put forward. Saying that is, there's things that happen all the time, hardship cases or things that you didn't know that now you have information. That's where you would reach out to your school administration and set up a meeting, and then we would take that case by case.
Okay, thank you.
Thea Brennan.
Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Yeah.
Good. So I just had a couple of questions. One was on the buses. I know you had sent out the bus needs to be from your home. What about for children that do before and after daycare? Are they able to take that, if they're taking the same bus to and from a daycare, is that an option, or no, it has to be a home address?
So that right now, that's going to depend. It's one address. So they're very clear right now about the guidance about what we can and cannot accommodate because of the bus pod. And as I told you, they're really cautious about this transportation piece. So you can't have it like, Monday I'm going to go to the daycare. But I think if you had the same address every single morning, it would have to be the same address in the afternoon, is my understanding. Now, we're waiting on additional guidance, like I told you, from the buses for the buses. So that may shift, but right now it's supposed to be one address.
Okay. Another question that I had was, so I know that it was mentioned that lunch will be in the classrooms. So for the allergy classrooms, how will that impact the classroom of the teacher in terms of what can or cannot come into the classroom?
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up, because I should have mentioned that when we were talking about lunches. So in a typical year, there is one allergy aware classroom per grade level, and the students keep their lunches outside that classroom. They keep their snacks outside that classroom, and their snacks are inspected by a TA to ensure that the snacks are safe to enter the classroom during snack time. This year, since the students will be eating lunch in the classroom, those allergy aware classrooms will need to be allergy safe, not only for snack, but also for lunch. So that means that when the lunches are kept outside the classroom, they'll need to be inspected in the same way that we inspected snacks. So that's going to be a big shift for some families, and hopefully they will be flexible and understanding, and we will continue to educate families about what's safe. And if a child brings in a lunch someday that's not safe, we'll contact the family. If the family can bring something else, that's great. And if not, we'll provide a school lunch for that child that is safe. And we'll continue all of the safe allergy aware practices in that classroom that we've always done during snack time, but we'll do it during lunchtime as well.
Thank you.
Amy,
And
oh, sorry, I thought
no, go ahead.
You said two. I was like, oh.
So just one other question. So I know every year we have to do lockdown practices. What is that going to look like?
So we just
now?
had this conversation. I met with all the chiefs of police and the fire marshals on Monday or Tuesday of this week, maybe Wednesday. And we had this conversation. It's going to look different, but basically what you would be thinking about is, let me be very clear. COVID is important, but if there's a shooter, there's some things that get lifted higher than certain things, right? So we're going to make sure that at all times our safety is number one. And it's like, at the nurse's office, the child with the paper cut and the child who broke his arm, there's a different level of triage, right? So that's really going to be our responsibility to ensure that regardless of what's happening, that we never put anybody in danger, and that we always make sure, obviously a lockdown is a very serious drill. If there's a real intruder, God forbid a real shooter, that's going to take precedence. We're going to move very quickly for lockdown. With that being said, Sharon and the other principals are going to work with their teachers to be thinking about spacing, where's the perimeter, make sure you tape it off so no one can be above that line. Maybe instead of everyone facing the same direction, the children are back to back. So there's things that we're thinking about, but we want to make sure you understand that there are some things that we have to look at differently, and safety will always be our number one priority.
Thank you. Thank you for tonight. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Amy, cutting.
Yes, so last year our kids went to before and after school care since we both work outside the home full time. Is either one of those things going to be an option this year, or because of pods are we prohibited from doing either before or after school care with the district and the YMCA?
So we will continue to offer before care through the district and after care through the YMCA. There is no limit to the number of pods that a child can participate in. So your child can be participating in the before school pod, in the classroom pod, and in the aftercare pod. Likewise, children can be on a bus pod, a classroom pod, and maybe an intramural pod. We'd like to continue with our intramural program. We'd like to continue with our before school care, our before school activities such as box. We're going to put those on hold for just a little bit until we get, our feet on the ground in terms of starting the year. But the childcare options for before and after school will be in place at the beginning of the year.
And we would just monitor those numbers like we would any other program.
Great, thank you.
Sarah.
Hi, how are you? I have a second grader, a sixth grader and a ninth grader. So I get to navigate 3 schools. So this is fun. My question is around the distance learning component of it and the support that we're giving our teachers. So no surprise, distance learning and virtual learning is a different beast than learning in the classroom, and it comes with different skills, and you kind of have to get your energy from different places. So wondering what support our teachers have received in order to really transform their approach in the virtual classroom versus the traditional classroom.
So I can talk to that a little bit, and Jane, feel free to jump in. You may remember that there were some days last year when the children did not have school. And that was governor directed. But I have to tell you, those days were really precious because we used that time to do a lot of sharing, grade level sharing and cross grade level sharing. I met every single week with teachers at their common planning time, and the amount of cross pollination was spectacular. And you know, one example is one teacher filming a science lesson and then sharing that science lesson with all the other teachers at the grade level, sharing the workload, sharing the materials, finding shortcuts to things, relying on our technology fellow for technology support. We were in good shape when this happened in March because our district has been trained in blended and personalized learning. But certainly everyone was in a little bit of a different place. So those that were more comfortable supported those that weren't. As principal, just like I would if I were a teacher, I was constantly checking the temperature of my staff to make sure that they felt comfortable in terms of the way they were delivering instruction, checking in on their mental health, you know, reminding them to close the lid. I would say to them, did you go for a walk at the lunch break? Oh, you didn't? You did work? Well, tomorrow you need to go for a walk, because it's so important that their mental health and their energy is up, as well as their skills in terms of delivering that information. I know just recently someone shared a book with me that around blended learning that really is fabulous and so apropos for the moment. So I just sent that out to my staff yesterday, asking who wants to join me in a book study. We have incredibly talented teachers and they support one another in this work. Our PD days that are scheduled for the district at the end of the summer will have a focus on teaching the diverse needs of all learners. So the focus will be on providing instruction digitally to students, but then also thinking about some of the other needs that our students have who are differently abled, who are behaviorally challenged, thinking of ways to continue to personalize the experience for kids. So I think that our kids in Charahoe are so lucky because we have done a lot of this work ahead of this pandemic. We all have room to grow, but our teachers have been an incredible support to one another. And our district has continued to support their needs through funding a distance learning fellow. The distance learning fellow's primary job is to support teachers who are teaching from a distance.
Awesome.
And
yeah, no, that's really helpful, Sharon, because I wanted to make sure that they were getting the support. And then I heard for the first time tonight is that there could potentially be an integration between the instructor-led classroom kids and the virtual kids. So that creates a different and unique dynamic. So I'm just hoping that, as you've always been really open to the feedback and the conversation as we're continuing to learn together.
Oh,
that's, for me, you know, I'm in corporate learning, so, you know, we have you know, many more resources to work with, but that's a real challenging dynamic, is to manage people in the classroom and people online at the same time.
Right. And I'm not going to pretend to anyone on this forum that we are experts. We are going to learn. And those of you that know me and know our building, like, you know, you call me, you shoot me an email, you tell me the good, the bad, the ugly, whatever it is, we're going to learn from each other and we're going to make it the best experience we can. And I can assure you of that.
And definitely send us your interesting tips. So I had a tip today, which I loved, by the way, and I'm going to call Sean tomorrow, our tech director, because one of the great suggestions I received today was that if your computer, a laptop, or Chromebook has an HDMI connection, you can plug it into your television or a monitor to allow that screen to get even larger for your children, so their teacher's not this big, but like almost life size if you have those big TVs. So I thought it was a great way for families, and it came from that Tech 911. Matt Allen does this tech show every Thursday on WPRO, and I listen, and I often get really great suggestions. And I was like, I know if the family that lives next to me purchased a movie projector, and they put that up with the projector, and you could extend, and the child can use a laptop and the movie projector. So it was just an interesting way to get their attention and see their teacher sort of life size. But those are the kinds of things we're going to continue to collect, and like Sharon said, cross-pollinate. Listen, the teachers are as stressed and anxious as every one of you, and the students. They want to do their best work, and they're very vulnerable right now because this is something they haven't done. So we appreciate and want the feedback, and we want everyone to recognize that they will always do the best that they can, and but they're always open to doing better and improving, as we all are. So, but thank you for that question. That was a great question. Kara Brown, we have a couple more and then we're going to head off because we're going to go to the 7:31. You can join us for that one too if you want to. But I want to take the last 3 questions and then we're going to go log off and then log back on for the 7:31. So we have Kara Brown. Kara, just make sure you're not muted.
Hello?
There you go.
Okay. Hi. So my question, I don't know how to even word it. It's kind of for like mental health. So, sorry, my anxiety is like really high. So, we've obviously learned in recent years how, mental health affects even the younger kids. And, the world is crazy and they're all freaking out already and everything's going to be different. So there are some kids that struggle with mental health. My youngest, she's going into 3rd grade. She has diagnosed anxiety and she's been recently diagnosed with actual depression because she's not with her friends, whatnot. However, she also is slightly immune compromised. So we opted for the distance learning because we figured, mental health we can kind of fix later. It's better than her getting sick, alternative. However, I was wondering if there was any plans or ideas or anything to maybe set up small, like after school groups of just small groups, like little, maybe 5 kids or something, little programs so that they can get to meet up with their friends, but keep it very limited contact or anything like that? Or is that something that us parents will have to set up ourselves, or, or digital recess kind of thing where the kids can talk, in meetings or anything like that, just so they can keep in contact with each other and their friends and stuff like that. So they're not completely left out, the kids that are distance learning. Just kind of any thoughts on that?
So we will certainly find creative ways of building a community for the students who are not physically in school. And that's one of the biggest strengths of our school, as you all know, is that sense of community. And so we'll be mindful of that. Our school psychologist, Dr. Smith, has been working with the other psychologists in the district around really thinking of creative ways to support the mental health of our students, both in school and out of school, as well as parents and teachers. And that will be a priority for us as a district, but certainly at Richmond School, we've always had a focus on mental and physical health. And so we are very aware of that and will continue that practice. We had hoped to do our anxiety coping group last spring with the University of Rhode Island's Dr. Ellen Flannery Schroeder. And due to COVID, we did not. However, that is something that we'd like to continue with in the fall. And certainly if your child is participating from learning at home, they can still be a part of that group where they'd have the opportunity to learn some strategies to cope with anxiety and to be with their peers. In terms of a play group, we're not planning to offer anything like that. That would be something you'd have to do on your own time. But I really hope that you'll reach out to your child's teacher, to me, and to our school psychologist, Dr. Smith, if you feel that you or your child is suffering from anxiety, and look to us to support you in this, because it's real, it's common, and we certainly don't want that to interfere with your child's learning.
All right, thank you.
Jim Palmisano.
Thank you very much for the location of my wife, so I count as a person. So thank you. Thank you for your time and the questions. Especially maybe Sharon is to you. And my question is about the intent and the purpose of the pods. I understand the size limit on the pod to be an effort to reduce contact and control any kind of spread, and also provide that contact tracing capability should there be an issue within that pod. I'm a little confused. With no limit to the number of pods that a student can be in, how are we effectively reducing potential for community spread, and is that a gap?
So your question is not a new one. That has come up many times. The superintendent and I have actually talked about the language as stable versus pod. Really, the idea behind the pod, as I know it, is that it's a way to control the number of people that are together in one place and to help us with contact tracing should someone indeed get sick. The dilemma and the big question that all of us want to know is, well, what happens? What happens if a child or a teacher is sick in let's say a 3rd grade classroom pod, and then that third grade child rides the bus, or that third grade child is in an aftercare program. Unfortunately, the answers to those questions are in the districts or in the Department of Health's playbook, and I don't have an answer for that. I don't know if Gina has an answer for that, but
yeah, they basically said that they don't give a maximum minimum number of pods, because what they recognize is, then, we don't know where the parents work. We don't know where, if grandma lives with there, and then grandma has a job, and then they see the uncle watches them after school. So it can really get larger. And what they're saying is for the purpose of us is that we are creating the pod so we know, and we're very specifically tracing all their movements. So before in school, we'd line up two lines, maybe 2 by 2, and we're not doing things like that. So we were just being more conscious, so we can really be mindful of the tracking of who makes contact with who in the school building.
And it's really our best effort to control kids and who they're with, and to know who they're with. Is it perfect? No. But to Gina's point, kids could be participating in after school programs, karate and art class. There's so many variables. And those are the things that all of us as parents need to think about when we make those decisions.
Yeah, no, I appreciate your candor in the answer. It's not an easy question to answer, and it's something that we all struggle with. I know that all of those after-school activities are under guidance from the state, karate, and social distancing, and I just worry, as we all do, what's going to happen. So thank you for your answer.
Okay, now this is the last question for the night. I apologize. I know we have 3 hands, but I did it. But please email me the questions or join us at 7:30 for the next one. Chris and Alessia Desano.
Hi, thank you all for doing what you're doing. We're incredibly appreciative, and we understand that decisions are difficult all the way around, and that there really are no right answers. Quick question. As far as the sick policy is concerned, is there going to be flexibility built in there? Because obviously parents are struggling with, probably lots of, in some respects, maybe 50-50 decisions, and wondering how that policy might be meted out this year.
So it absolutely is going to be changed. And the idea is that we're going to collect the information differently. So in the past, you would call out your child sick. Now the question is, typically, your child wakes up and says, oh, I have a runny nose. You can't have a package of Kleenex and say, be careful, take the Kleenex, go forward. But that's not what we're asking you to do now. So what we'll do is you'll call in, if your child cannot be learning because there is a bigger medical condition, then you say, Gina's out sick today. She can't learn. She can't be involved in distance learning. And if they can, then you would say she's out sick, but she's going to be involved in distance learning. You don't have to tell us why, because that's, again, HIPAA, but you would just let us know available for distance learning or not available for distance learning. And then we're tracking that attendance for RIDE for the state differently, so we know that the number, because we're asking people to do it differently. But yes, we unless your child is unable to participate in learning, it's not an absence.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Okay, so thank you everyone for the, please know, like I said, the virtual forums are not meant to just come to one. You're welcome to come to all of them and listen in and ask more questions. We're having another one at 7:30. So please join us if you want to hear more, just listen in or ask more questions. I want to thank Sharon for her time, and Jane, but, and this isn't the only way. This is just an additional opportunity. I am responding to emails every single day, as is Sharon, as is Jane, as are all our principals. If there was something you didn't ask, email us. And then typically what I'm doing is adding to the FAQ. I've started putting the date underneath, so you know that it's new as of August 5th or as of August 6th. And if you don't see your question there, make sure you know. Let me know and say, hey, could you add this question? I hear this a lot from families. So if you are hearing a question that's not in there, it's helpful for us to know. So thank you again for all your time. These were great questions. The more that we can communicate, I think the better we all get understanding the information. Please don't let gossip or social media lead you in a direction to get nervous. If you don't get nervous, call us or email us. We will make sure, you may not always like the answers. We don't always like the answers either, to be honest, but we're gonna be honest, we're gonna be transparent, and we're gonna continue to communicate. So thank you so much, everyone. And I see lots of kids listening, so hello, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Good night, everyone.